So I am going to come up with a few statements
Okay.
that are out there that people have been saying, and you tell me whether these are overreactions or not from week one. So the first one that I've heard a fair amount of is that Ohio State is better than last year. Better than last year.
That is definitely an overreaction. I don't agree with that, and the one data point certainly is not enough to prove that, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because you've got so many new faces over there. Raekwon McMillan has been an excellent leader on that defense, and against Bowling Green, they looked better. They looked good and efficient, but that's something that you're not going to figure out right now because offensive line and the skill players, they just didn't see it. They didn't see what they're going to see throughout the rest of the season. Now, offensively, new offensive line, clearly not what it was last year. Ezekiel Elliott is gone. Mike Weber is not Ezekiel Elliott. He may develop into a good back, but he's not to the level of Ezekiel Elliott. So, no, definitely an overreaction right there.
And I am with you in a huge way. The one thing I will say, I think they're better off at quarterback, assuming J.T. Barrett stays 100% healthy, because he was looking over his shoulder last year. I mean, nothing good came out of that situation last year. So that's the one place I think, if people want to say that, I think that's defensible. The rest of it, you don't lose 12 NFL draft picks and get better.
Well, those are lessons learned from the 2015 campaign, not just who the quarterback was, but how plays got called. I think that was a real issue with Ed Warner and Tim Beck down on the sideline, up in the box. You know, they finally got that figured out after the Michigan State loss, and that's why Ohio State looked so good against Michigan and then looked so good against Notre Dame in the Fiesta Bowl. They finally got the mechanics figured out, and now you've got a quarterback, as you mentioned, designated as a captain right after the Fiesta Bowl, and clearly he's the leader of that team, clearly defined guy, not looking over his shoulder at all.
Potential overreaction number 2.
All right.
Wisconsin is the best team in the Big Ten West.
Potentially an overreaction. I mean, it's not clearly defined to me. Not over this LSU team that was as sloppy at times as they were and made the mistakes that they made. I'm still looking at Iowa. I'm still looking at Nebraska in the West and saying that they could be better than Wisconsin. So it's a bit of an overreaction. I could see people saying it right now, though, just based on, you know, one data point. But I'm not there yet. I got to see a lot more out of Wisconsin, especially more consistency out of Bart Houston in that passing game.
And they had the best win. I mean, that's clear. Northwestern had the best win in week 1 last year, one of the best wins of the year, beating Stanford. It didn't mean they were the best team in the West. No, they were really good. They won 6 Big Ten games, but again, as you say, I think we maybe need a little more to figure this out.
we definitely got to learn a lot more about what LSU is,
right?
And we call it the best win based on our expectations and what the polls said. Once again,
Alabama will roll to another national title after throttling USC. Is that an overreaction?
That's an overreaction, because roll implies that it's going to be easy, and it's never
What if I were
easy.
going to say they're going to win another national title?
No. They're not going to win a national title.
Oh, okay.
No, I picked Florida State before the season. I got real nervous in the first. I got real nervous in the first half last night. Feeling much better in the second half last night. But I think that they're going to be challenged inside of the SEC. I think Ole Miss, I think Tennessee will play better. LSU will get better. So they won't even roll to an SEC title. They're gonna have their challenges, and I don't think they win the national championship. Although I do have them in my Final Four.
It's funny because the overreaction a year ago when they lost to Ole Miss was that the dynasty is done.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the turnover ratio, you look at the big plays by Ole Miss in that game, and you know, everybody freaking out. Oh, this isn't the same Alabama, all that kind of stuff. They're just more fuel to the fire for Nick.
That was an overreaction in the middle of the season. So this is an early over. They were really good. They were the best team. They were the best team in the country in week 1. I mean, I think that's pretty safe to say. I mean, given, well, again, we don't know what USC is, but man, that was impressive. How about this one? LSU and Notre Dame are out of the national championship picture. Is that an overreaction?
It's an overreaction. We've seen it too many times here. We've seen too many times in the last few years teams that lose earlier in the season make it, especially now, into the playoff, and then have an opportunity to win a national title. So I think that they're definitely still in the picture. LSU.
Okay. That's where I'm going. You could see LSU based on what you saw?
Not based on what I mean, we've seen crazier improvement, haven't we, throughout the season? Remember Ohio State against Virginia Tech a couple of years ago and how different that team looked? I mean, it can be one of those situations where the light switch gets flicked, if you will.
Yep.
Is that a good phrase?
Yeah, yeah. You could. I think
you just never know. But I would be extremely surprised if LSU was able to turn it around. I'd be less surprised by Notre Dame.
Yeah, you have less margin for error, though, now. I mean,
no question.
You already have that strike against you. Notre Dame played at a high level. They just
But my point is, you can't look at the rest of their schedules and say, okay, if these guys win out, as unlikely as that may be, and say that their national title hopes are done.
I hear you. It's hard to imagine LSU, unless they're going to improve dramatically offensively, both in terms of execution and philosophically.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine it happening. One more for you. The SEC is no longer the most dominant conference in college football.
That is true. That's not an overreaction at all.
Okay.
They're not the dominant conference. I mean, and to say that they're the best, or that by the end of the season they may not have the most teams in the top 10, we're going to find out about that. But you can't tell me that after Alabama that there's a team in the SEC that is clearly head and shoulders above the rest of the teams in the country. Georgia looked better than we thought, but most of the teams looked worse than we thought. You look at Tennessee, you look at LSU, Mississippi State losing the way that they did as well as they played a couple years ago. Ole Miss started off well, but then in the second half faltered, and that's probably as much about as good or has more to say about how good Florida State is. But they're clearly not the dominant conference in the country right now. 6
non-conference losses for the SEC in week 1, several unimpressive wins.
Might be the ACC is better than the SEC right now. I think the Big Ten's better than the SEC right now.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear to me.
It's hard to argue based on the performances of week 1, but again, we go back.
But arguing's fun.
We go